Hey, what's up, family? I'm going to be doing something just a little bit different today. We're going to be doing this video on a question that came from somebody from our very own community. We're going to be going over what happens to members of 1% biker clubs when they go to prison. And if you're unfamiliar with what a 1% biker is, let me break that down for you.
The American Motorcycling Association stated that 99% of the motorcycling public are law-abiding citizens and only 1% are not. Therefore, outlaw motorcycle gangs took this and made it their patch and their creed.
And this is exactly why you're going to see the 1% bikers, the outlaw bikers, wearing the 1% diamond patch. It's a status symbol. It lets people know that they are basically not to be effed with. But if you do not have rank in one of these clubs, you definitely don't want to be caught wearing one of those diamond patches. It can be absolutely bad for your health. So like I said, they are the 1%, which leaves 99% that are either just motorcycle enthusiasts, but there's a whole lot of people that are just absolute posers, especially since the show Sons of Anarchy came out. We've got a lot of doctors and lawyers who went out and bought like $50,000 Harleys and a brand new cut, and they only whip them out once or twice a year to be able to ride and feel like they're actually a badass, when in fact they are lame as. Speaking of that show Sons of Anarchy, I know there's gonna be people in the comments asking me if that's what real biker life is like, so let me just nip that right in its bud and tell you no. While there are some aspects of the show that are semi-realistic, Kurt Sutter is pretty much a master at making captivating TV. And I'll give it this, the show is entertaining, there's a lot of twists and turns, some of it absolutely lost me, like when they killed Opie, but some of it just wasn't true to the biker code, it wasn't realistic to how things go legally, there were so many inconsistencies and flaws with it that all in all, it was a fun watch, but if you go up to some 1% bikers and you're like, yeah, Sons of Anarchy, they might slap you in your shit. Now look, I myself, I've never been in a biker club like 1% or otherwise, and I have no affiliation with any specific club. I have done business with multiple different outlaw clubs throughout the years, and I liked not being assigned to any single one of them because I could do business with all of them freely, and a lot of them don't get along. They have absolutely deadly feuds that have been going on for decades, and out on the streets, they will 100% open fire on sight on each other. But today we're going to be talking about what happens to 1% bikers when they go into prison. Do they have a lot of power on the inside? Do they end up joining other gangs? Who do they run with? We're about to get into all of that, so y'all know exactly what time it is right now. Let's go! The number of homeless people continues to rise in America. The housing costs continue to skyrocket, forcing people to find alternative, affordable options for housing. That's where Containing Luxury comes in, not just in offering affordable housing options, but also in offering unique investment opportunities where you can be a part of a business that is on the rise while also giving back to our communities. And just like Containing Luxury has made affordable housing available for everybody, they've also made investing available for everybody by starting their investments as low as $100. There's a link in the description if you want to invest in Containing Luxury. So first off, if it's your first time checking me out, my name is JD, and I was a career criminal and a drug addict for over 20 years. Today, I'm a recovery coach, peer support recovery specialist, and a smart recovery facilitator. I own my own business, recovery coaching, and I try to help other people not go down that same path that I went down. And the thing that you need to understand about prison is it's going to be different in every single state. And then you got the feds, which is a completely whole different ball game altogether. And I did my prison time in the state of Oregon, but I also did a whole lot of county time down there in the state of Florida, where I was a fugitive for almost a decade. So to prepare for this video, I had to hit up some friends and ask them their experiences in different states and the feds. I talked to my friend Andy down there in Sacramento, who's done a lot of time in the California prison system and a lot of time in the federal prison system. I talked to Danny Collins, who's out there in Florida, who did a lot of time in the Florida prison system. And I talked to my friend Trev, who's also a mod for this channel, who did time in Colorado and Utah. And what I found is there's some pretty common denominators when it it comes to members of 1% biker gangs in state prisons. It's a little bit different in the feds, but we're going to get into all that right in here in a second. Now, one thing that is the same regardless of what state you're in is that you cannot be putting new people on in prison to your MC. You can't add extra people. You can't recruit. You can't be out there banging. You can't be out there doing any business in the name of your biker club. You're just not allowed to do it. The gangs in the prisons, they've already established themselves and they don't want anyone else coming in and taking power or territory. That's why you also can't start up new gangs in any of these prison systems. Plus, think about it, man. If you're in a biker MC, ain't nobody got motorcycles in prison, so it don't really make sense to try to recruit people to be on your vroom vroom gang while you in there. And what happens from my experience is that most of the time, these dudes from these bike clubs, they just jump seamlessly into prison gangs. They are already used to that life. They're already outlaws. They're definitely criminals. They're not scared to fight, and they know how to conduct themselves, so the get down is pretty much the same. They just jump into another gang, and then when they get back out onto the streets, they go back to doing their MC thing. And in fact, I had a long history of doing business with biker gangs, so when I got up there to prison, I knew one of the dudes from one of these MCs when I got there, and he had just jumped in another gang, and every single day, they seemed to be pulling him over as he was walking to chow or walking to the yard and taking him to a little room to street search him to see if he had gotten any gang tattoos anywhere on his body. And he wasn't going to do it, but he got really tired of it. So what he ended up getting was FUCK-CPS tattooed on his butt. So when he had to spread his butt cheeks to show him when they strip searched him, the O was his asshole. It said fuck cops, which was undeniably epic. But this dude ended up being like really high up in the ranks of that prison gang, just like he was in the MC on the streets, because it's really a lot of the same rules and the same life. You just don't have the freedoms, you don't have the perks, there's less benefits, but you're already used to how to conduct yourself, which is really important in prison because pretty much everything is based on respect and brutality in there. As far as California, it's the same exact type of deal. They can either ride solo or they can jump into one of the established prison gangs, but they can't be out there recruiting, they can't be out there banging, and they ain't really nothing for the MC when they in prison. It just doesn't exist. Now, Florida is a little bit different, and let me explain why. One of the biggest MCs out there on the streets in the state of Florida, like they got all the numbers, they also sanction the biggest prison gang for white boys on that yard out there in Florida. And what sanctioning means is that they run together. They're actually under this MC. So if any of the dudes from this MC hit one of them prison yards out there, they're already a member. They're like a high-ranking member. They're like above them. In fact, if you were a part of this prison gang for 10 years with no trouble, no problems, you ain't got no bad paperwork, nothing bad comes up about you, you can automatically patch in to that MC. So anytime one of these dudes lands on one of them prison yards, they're already in a position of power. It was a very intelligent move that they made sanctioning this gang, because when they get hemmed up on state charges and go in, they're already set. They're going to be okay. Now listen, we're going to talk about Colorado. When somebody from an MC goes to prison in Colorado, they're out of gas. They got no juice at all whatsoever. In fact, if you've got tattoos from your club and you hit that prison yard in Colorado, the biggest gang out there, they're not going to let you ride out with those tattoos unless you join in their gang. If you join their gang, they're probably going to let that slide. But my homie Trev literally saw one of these dudes get held down and have his tattoo on his hand blacked out. That's where they tattoo over it so dark that you can't read it anymore. And this dude didn't do nothing about it, so he had no respect on that yard at all whatsoever. That club that he was in on the streets did not mean a thing once he hit that prison yard. It's a cold shot having that tattoo removed against your will. That's like tattoo rape, homie. So now look, the feds is where this shit gets big boy for the MCs. The majority of people who get caught up that are in MCs, they go to the feds because they hitting them up on these RICO charges. They're getting them for these organized crime charges. I can tell you, I know so many good dudes that were in MCs, and I trusted them, and I was happy to do business with them, except for the fact that they were always being watched. They were always hot on that block. And it wasn't their fault, you know what I'm saying? It's just that they're so scrutinized by the federal government. So when they actually get popped, bro, they definitely gonna do big boy time in them feds. So there's a lot more of them on the yard. So what they decided that they were gonna do, even though they're bitter rivals on the streets, 100%, they see each other on the streets, they gonna be shooting at each other. That's just the business. They got some on-sites in there. That doesn't matter in prison. If you in the feds and you in a biker MC, bro, they all got one big car where they all instantly get along. It's like all beefs are squashed and they all watch each other's back. It's called the biker car, and it just makes sense because then they don't got to worry about nobody else, no other gangs. They got numbers, they got strength, they got territory, they got business, they got hustle. Everything's set up for them in there. Now look, the thing to keep in mind is that it's not that these dudes are any less savage than the dudes in the prison gangs. A lot of these dudes and these MCs are seasoned veterans at the criminal lifestyle. They're good fighters. They're savage. They'll do whatever they need to do. It's simply a numbers thing because there's not as many of them that are in there, and the gangs are constantly recruiting. If you're in an MC, you cannot recruit in there. So naturally, the gangs are going to be able to overtake you in numbers over any type of club that can't build their numbers while they're in there. But these are still not dudes that you want to disrespect. These are not dudes that you want to test or try. These are real life gangsters, man. Like the dudes in the MCs, they're badasses, the majority of them. Even if one of these dudes is completely solo and they didn't join a gang, they're still not somebody that you want to play with. It's just not worth it, bro. You playing with your life. Me personally, I've always had an affinity for bikers. I like them. A lot of them are solid stand-up dudes. They are really generally true to their word. That's one thing that you can count on with most of these bikers. If they say it, they mean it. And they're also entirely protective of children. And it doesn't matter whose kid it is. It doesn't matter what bike club it is, bro. They protect children. It's part of their lifestyle. It's part of their creed. When it comes down to kids, they are safe around bikers. Also, just on a business level, these dudes do solid business. They're not generally about doing dumbass stuff. They're not going to pinch your sack. They're not going to sell you fake stuff. They're not going to rob you. They live on their reputation. They live on their word, and they're stand-up business people. Now, they might beat the shit out of you for looking at them sideways, but if you treat them with respect and come at them like on that good level, they're generally going to reciprocate that. Now, bikers tend to have a really bad rap because they're really scary dudes, and they can be, but here's my question. Are you a bitch? Because it seems to me that a lot of people are just generally used to being able to run their cocksuckers without any consequences, and that's one thing that's not gonna fly when you're hanging out around bikers. Which is honestly something that I can get behind and respect. So thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks for riding out, watching the video, kicking it. Yo, if you liked this video, if you learned anything, if you got anything out of this, do me a favor, man. Smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed yet, I don't know why you haven't, man. You know you want to. You know you like me. I mean, I'm like this much cool. And as always, I love each and every one of you. Thank you for being a part of our community. Until the next time, y'all, one love. Be good or be good at it, baby.